Hi, I'm Yitzhak Berger. I teach Hebrew at Risha. It's widely known that in a number of different ways, the Torah hints at the division of the plagues into three sets of three, highlighting roughly God's existence, His providence, and His supreme power. Followed by a 10th plague, the killing of the firstborn, that possibly adds that God is universal, operating above natural forces. At the same time, though, there's another division that emerges from the text, between, on the one hand, the first 5 plagues, each of which prompts Paro to harden his heart and resolve not to release Bnei Israel, and on the other hand, the last 5 plagues, where we're told that God himself hardened Paro's heart. Now, God's hardening of Paro's heart famously poses a problem. How could God have apparently taken away Paro's free will and then continue to punish him for his decisions? Beyond that, we're faced with the question of how 2 separate structural divisions of the plagues operate simultaneously. The one that divides them into 3 sets of 3, plus the killing of the firstborn on the one hand, and on the other hand, the one that divides them into 2 sets of 5. It's these questions for which we'd like to suggest an answer here. There are 2 well-known approaches to the problem of the hardening of Paro's heart. One of them, that's most famously associated with the Rambam, suggests that at a certain point, a person deserves to lose the opportunity for tshuva. In this view, after refusing to let Bnei Israel leave Egypt so many times, Paro lost the right to repent, and God was justified in removing his free will, punishing him further for his earlier intransigence, and piling on several more plagues in order to make the theological points that those plagues are supposed to convey. Another approach, though, and one that's often associated with the Beis Halevi, who was the great-grandfather of the late Rav Soloveitchik, Zichrono Livracha, but which in basic form already appears in a number of medieval commentators. This approach suggests that in reality, the plagues had reached a point of severity where no person could have withstood them and still refused to let Bnei Israel go. And so had God not hardened Paro's heart, Paro would effectively have lost his free will purely because of circumstances, so that by hardening his heart, what God did was to restore Paro's free will, where it otherwise would have been lost. We adopt this latter approach. Let's return to the question of how the 2 different structures of the plagues operate in conjunction with one another. The middle set of 3 plagues, plagues 4, 5, and 6, where the Torah tells us that God protected the land of Goshen where Bnei Israel lived, function to show God's providence. He punishes the people who deserve it and protects the ones that don't. Those 3 plagues end after number 6, at which point the message has been indisputably conveyed. The refusal to let Bnei Israel go brings punishment specifically on the Egyptian oppressors. So if after plague number 6, Paro now understands that God is not arbitrary, and that it's precisely his continued intransigence that brings about more insufferable plagues onto himself and his people, there would indeed have been no way that he would have been able to continue to say no, even under the threat of more and more plagues. So it's precisely after plague number 6, and so on through the end, where the hardening of Paro's heart and the restoration of his free will required the intervention of God. Once those middle plagues did their job of showing that defying the God of Israel is undeniably what's bringing severe punishment upon the Egyptians specifically, it took divine initiative to make sure that the plagues would be withstood. Paro would continue to implement his own choice of not releasing Israel. And the balance of the plagues with their crucial theological message of God's supremacy, his transcendence, and universality would come to fruition. Shabbat Shalom.